Altogether peaceful anti-war rally began to break up when a small fraction of the larger crowd led the most militant among them on an authorized march on the Justice Department. They were led by the Youth International Party, the Yippies, whose two leaders, Jerry Rubin and Ad Hoffman, are being tried in Chicago for conspiring to incite riots at last year's Democratic Party convention. Their announced campaign against the Justice Department stopped the trial. They swept past police lines down Constitution Avenue and completely surrounded the block square Justice Department building. The trouble started when a few militants lowered the American flag and tried to turn it upside down. More moderate young men intervened. A small Viet Cong flag went up and police moved in. The Washington police were firm but restrained. They put the flag back up and stationed a guard at the pole. At that point, at least 5,000 rebels, made up of a dozen revolutionary youth groups, jammed the avenue. Then the assault began. Bricks, rocks, and bottles shattered at least a score of the windows. Red paint splattered the stone structure in 2 places. Rebel flags were attached to the building. A red smoke grenade went off in a first-floor office. Firecrackers exploded. Street fighters pounded on the heavy metal door in front. Police fired tear gas, scattering the crowd and shattering the hope of the majority of the marchers that today's protest would be peaceful. Bruce Morton reports the earlier events.
The new mobilization had pledged nonviolence. It kept to be small or badly planned, but then there they came, the milling thousands beginning to form this wintry, freezing morning. Senator Eugene McCarthy told them, carry on from here, all of you, and the march moved out down Pennsylvania Avenue. The government had a lot of force around, but it was politely tucked out of sight in courtyards and side streets away from the march and any possible provocation. On other side streets, the lines of buses which brought the marchers here, those too away from the main route. The column began to roll, 4 lanes wide, down Washington's traditional parade street, which the government had earlier this week decided to let the marchers use. They wore all kinds of clothes, wore mostly longish hair, were mostly young and almost all white. At least the official count of them kept growing. An early figure was 100,000, but as the crowd grew, Washington's chief of police said 250,000 was a modest estimate. The chief demonstration marshal guessed over 300,000, and there could easily have been 500,000. No crowd figure is accurate, but it may have been the biggest turnout this city has ever seen. The volunteer marshals were once or twice apprehensive that radicals in the crowd would try to swerve from the planned route toward the White House, but the lines of marshals always held. No trouble, no violence anywhere along the line of march. Violence did flare last night in a splinter demonstration not endorsed by the new mobilization. The Weatherman faction of the Students for a Democratic Society, which finds something close to moral virtue in street fighting, tried to strip. Police drove them back with tear gas. The Weathermen counterattacked and smashed store windows near their assembly point. Rocks and bottles flew. 11 policemen were hurt. One hospital treated 20 injured. There were 31 arrests. The same kind of trouble which has erupted again this evening.